Good morning. Good morning. Okay, hi. Welcome to day 2 of Writers Week 25. Yeah, you can give that a round of applause. Absolutely. So we are in for a very special treat today. We have student presenters throughout the day. If you got to be here yesterday for some of the student presentations, you know just how special these periods are. So thank you guys so much for being a wonderful audience yesterday. We know that will continue today. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with our first student, Otis Dumbre.
One thing that makes me really angry is that we have school on Diwali. I understand that religious holidays aren't technically a thing in this district because it's just coincidental that Good Friday is also a non-attendance day in a predominantly Christian America. But last November, my parents and all my special brownie friends' parents were calling their bosses and skipping work because not a single day of the year is as important as Diwali. Sorry. But even though I couldn't stay home and watch Kal Ho Na Ho for the 17th time that month, I was still spreading the hype. For every Indian person I saw, which is a lot of people in this school, I gave them a hug and a Happy Diwali, and everyone had been responding with the same enthusiasm. It didn't really matter if I knew the person. On Diwali, all Indians are the portrait of unity. But then I got to third period, Mr. Moon's math class, and Varun Kompala ruined my day. When Mr. Kompala came to sit down at my desk, I, of course, recognizing his Indian descent, gave him a very cheery, Happy Diwali! But Mr. Kompala gave me a sigh, a cringe, and the most cutting words I've felt in my entire life. Oh, just stop! You're the most Indian person I know. Excuse me? Maybe a normal person would have forgotten this event in early November. But no, it's me, and I'm remembering these words 3 months later. Okay, but over winter break, I got a taste for Mr. Kompala's perspective. I was in Jamaica, heading to the Dunn's River Falls on a small tour bus full of Indians and one white family. It was small because the bigger tour bus had filled up with the people on time. It was full of Indians because we're never on time. 15 minutes into the bus ride, and then the Indians went all out. Hello, driver. Do you watch cricket? Do you watch cricket? Yeah, I know, it's very popular here, and in India also. The bus driver mumbled something, but you couldn't really hear what his response was because of the Hindi dialogue back and forth between the passengers. My brother and I were staring out the window, cringing and feeling pretty bad for that one white family in the corner. After around 20 minutes, our group got off at a rest stop, and we saw the big tour bus and all these people hopping out who were just as loud as all the Indians, but they were all speaking English. So after everyone spent time at the gift shop buying things they would never use, we all started to get back on the buses. We were on our way to the Dunn's River Falls, and I was pretty excited because DJ Khaled is buying a house there, so it must be pretty cool. But then I noticed those white people were gone. Now everyone on the bus was brown except for the driver, and for a second, that Varun Kompala perspective was starting to hit me. I couldn't blame that white family for leaving. It must have been awkward to be sitting on a bus full of tons of people a different color than them, a different language and mannerism than them, a different lifestyle than them. Then I realized, isn't that the same way my immigrant parents, or really any minority, live every single day? Even though for one day of the year, I'm hugging every brown person I know and flaunting it, you guys would all think it was pretty weird if I wore a sari to school and ate palak paneer during Mr. Z's 8-push 4th period. People would cringe, just as I had done to all those people on the bus. All this talk about respectability politics has gotten the majority interested in the minority. We're hip to say that minorities shouldn't have to act like the majority to earn their respect. But we often forget that we have to first embrace and take pride in our cultures before we ask other people to do the same for us. We have to start taking Indian accents as the story and not the punchline. When I went to Jamaica, I realized I was judging people for acting too Indian. But maybe being too Indian is super cool. I want to be too Indian, Varun. So today, I would like to challenge Mr. Kompala, he's not here right now, but I'll tell him about it during math class, to be proud of the Bollywood music I know he listens to while doing his math homework. But more importantly, I challenge every Indian here to start acting like one. Next up is Nat Hotchman.
Shout out to Mrs. Quinn's first period class. My dad is an instigator. He is always convincing me to do insane stuff. At a young age, perhaps 4 years old, my dad had the genius idea to play football with me inside the house. With my Mickey Mouse football clutched in my hand, I'd run from the hallway through our living room to the couch, which was our end zone. My dad is 6'1", and he seemed to weigh a ton. I was like a tiny mouse trying to get around a big mountain. To make it fair, my dad played defense on his knees, daring me to get past him. My job was to prepare a strategy to get around him and score a touchdown. I loved sprinting and diving right at him. The precise time, he'd lower his shoulder and raise it up quickly to flip me over his shoulder, high up in the air towards the couch for a flying touchdown. Sometimes I make it, other times I'd almost break my neck. It was like a dizzying, overstimulating game that would wind me up before bedtime. Little did I know, this was just the start of my blind faith in the man. A few years later, we took a family vacation to Oregon. Our family vacations always include some sort of outdoor activity. My parents decided to take us whitewater rafting. For the first 2 hours, we survived a series of rapids. Finally, we came to a calm part of the river. There happened to be a steep 15-foot tall rock next to the river. Some members of our group had the great idea to climb up the rock, tip to the edge, and jump in the water. My dad had the brilliant idea for an 8-year-old, 45-pound, puny kid to clamber up the slippery rock and hop off the ledge. My mom screamed at my dad to get me down before I fell and killed myself. I fiercely ascended the rock and took my leap of faith. Because I weighed next to nothing, I floated down like a feather until I hit the water. I had a total adrenaline rush. On another family trip to the San Juan Islands in Washington, we stayed at this awesome house that had a staircase leading down to the ocean. Thing about the Pacific Northwest, the water's always super cold, which is perfect for sea lions. Humans, not so much. My dad knows how much I love sea mammals. Naturally, he persuaded me to plunge into the freezing water to swim with the sea lions. My mom was about ready to strangle my dad for fear I'd end up with hypothermia and drown. He waved her off, said, "It's fine, she knows how to swim." Even though I was turning blue and couldn't feel my limbs, I was ecstatic. While my dad lacks common sense and knows how to wind me up, he has instilled in me an important quality: courage. Without him, I probably wouldn't even have the guts to stand up on this stage. His confidence in me has led to many life-changing experiences and memorable adventures. For that, I'm forever grateful. Thanks, Dad. I love you. And up next is Sydney Lenz.
Good morning, everyone. Now, as most of us probably know, the college search process can be extremely stressful. With applications, scholarship essays, and interviews, many seniors cringe even hearing the words Common App. That's not even to mention all of the college tours that students go on. So during this time of anxiety, as many seniors receive decisions, or like me are still waiting on decisions, I'd like to lighten that stress as much as possible by sharing some of my weird, hopefully funny advice for underclassmen on how to survive college tours. Now, as you go on college tours, you will quickly realize that there is one major characteristic that divides colleges into two categories. And no, it's not size or acceptance rate or any statistic they tout on their website. No. It's whether or not they give you free stuff when you show up for the tour. A perfect example of this was when I toured two colleges in St. Louis University and Washington University in St. Louis. The SLU tour's first stop was the hospitality room, where there were snacks, coffee, tea and hot chocolate, t-shirts, and stress relief balls shaped like their mascot, in addition to these standard information packets. It was pretty clear they were trying their best to win over their prospective students. This contrasted sharply with Washington University, where you were lucky to get a folder with your flyers. They knew you were going to apply, and they knew that if you were accepted, you were going to go. They didn't exactly have to try and get you. So my advice, try and find those colleges with the free stuff, because hey, free food is free food. Once you get past the free stuff, or lack thereof, there are a few things that you'll notice about your tour groups. And now, based on my experience, depending on where you are, your tour group will either look like they just stepped out of a Vineyard Vines catalog, or like actually normal human beings. There will also be some constant types of people in the group, and though the people fulfilling these roles will change, there will always be someone in one of these categories. First, there's the tour guide themselves, someone who can either be a current student, or like on one of my tours, an admissions officer who hadn't attended the university and had only worked there for a year. Yeah, lots of help, she was answering our questions. There's also the overly concerned parent, asking all of their questions while their child stands, slightly embarrassed, next to them. There's also the stragglers. These are the people who linger behind the rest of the group, talking amongst themselves, not really paying attention to the tour guide. These people can either keep hanging back throughout the tour or split off entirely and go on their own self-guided tour. This latter option can be especially awkward when the tour group is so small it loses half of its members during this split. But let me caution you right now, underclassmen, you do not want to be any of these people, and whatever you do not let your parent convince you that you don't need the tour guide, instead going on the mom and dad tour. This, from my experience, consists of an hours-long, aimless wander of campus in the middle of summer, trying to get into buildings that are clearly locked for good reason, and guessing on where you are based on a poorly made map of campus you just happened to find. It is not fun. After the tour, if your mom is anything like mine, she'll make you sit down and write out all of the things you liked or didn't like about a particular school. Avoid this at all costs. You might get some ice cream out of it, but the pain of the teeth that will be pulled during this process can never be numbed by that delicious dairy delicacy. However, your father has a very different way of going about this process that is definitely preferable. He will ask some vague questions, accept vague answers where your mother will not, and then proceed to still get you ice cream, which you can eat in the car while he's driving around looking for a bottle opener, but that's a different story. So just trust me that the moral of that experience is that whenever possible, you should try to go on college tours with the more chill parent, because it will usually work out in your favor. My biggest piece of advice for all of you underclassmen as you transition to thinking about college and then taking tours is to make sure that you keep your eyes open, because while overall the college search process is not fun, no matter what, you'll probably end up with some interesting stories, if nothing else. Up next is Siddharth Karnam.
I had to adjust that, sorry. So just real quick, shout out to Miss Vidal's first period. I know you guys, and then quick disclaimer, if any of you come up to me after this and then apologize for all the short jokes you made, I might just slap you in front of everyone. Because that's not what I want you guys to take away from this. Go, Sid! Right. Midget, dwarf, smurf. I was never allowed to forget how the alteration in my bone structure ensured that I would be looked down upon forever. It was at my most vulnerable time that I learned the value in always looking up. I waddled into my local pediatric center with my dad for my annual physical and shook the giant hand of Dr. Brotman, my pediatrician. Like every other year, he explained that to get big and strong like my dad, who's approximately 6'3", I needed to drink my milk. And at the end of my checkup, he determined whether or not I'm at the average height of a boy my age, and gave me his best guess as to how tall I'd be after puberty, which was almost always around 6 feet. With each passing year, my height felt lower and lower below the average. And before I knew it, 7th grade was right around the corner. At this point, I was noticeably shorter than everyone else. In fact, I was the shortest in my grade. Although plenty of friends from my elementary school were joining me the next year, there were kids that I had never even met before. My first thought was, will I fit in? I knew that there would be some that distanced themselves away from me because I wasn't what they would consider the typical teenager. But I was most worried about the old friends that would neglect me. Summer break came to a close, and I waited in anticipation for the school year to begin. On the first day, I traipsed over to the bus stop and saw a line of 8th graders waiting there for me. As I came closer and closer with my head held low to the ground, I could feel their eyes burning through the top of my bowl cut, which, as you can see, I still have. In the 5 minutes since I stepped out of my house, I had already sweat enough to turn myself into a human raisin. I sat alone until my friend Sham got on the bus and squeezed himself next to me. He tried his best to relieve my anxiety, but nothing worked. We walked into our new environment and tried desperately to find our friends. Unsuccessful, I was eager to get to class, but not because I was excited to learn, instead to escape the twisted smirks that were shot at me by strangers. I even heard someone scream through the hallway, who led a preschooler through the building. I covered my wet face so Sham wouldn't see, ran into the nearest bathroom, and let the tears stream down my face for the next 5 minutes. And as I asked why I was so abnormal. That day marked a turning point in my life. At that moment, I envied others who weren't burdened by a physical flaw. But as I grew, my perspective changed. Robert M. Hansel, a disability activist and 2-time world record holder, said something that I hold very, very close to my heart. I choose not to place dis in my ability. That first day of school was the day that I realized I had the choice to make either the worst or the best out of what I was born with. I became more accepting of my superpower, and as a result, I was able to laugh at myself. It's ironic, but I needed something that hurt. I turned something that hurt me day in and day out to talk about with others into a conversation starter, a joke, or whatever else I wanted it to be. It turned me into who I am today, and I'm forever grateful for the gift that I have. I've realized that if we ignore what we have no control over and instead work on our strengths, we become more confident and way more healthy. Some are more apparent than others, but everyone has flaws. All that matters is whether we choose to accept or reject who we are, regardless of our imperfections. Thank you. Next up is Hannah.
The Mall of America is a popular stop for tourists in Minnesota. After all, it's the largest mall in the United States. It also happens to be where I, Hannah Lobnar, had my first run-in with the law. It happened the summer of 2017. My softball team was exploring the massive mall as we were in town for nationals. I was with my friends, the Amandas and Megan. Yes, I have 2 friends named Amanda. I didn't pick their names, so don't blame me if it gets a bit confusing. Anyway, Amanda, Megan, Amanda, and I were walking out of Nordstrom hoping to find more than the countless racks of shoes and comforters. A tall, brown-haired man stood outside, his eyes hidden under a navy blue cap. As he drew near, I saw his dark gaze scan over my group, setting off alarms in my head. He narrowed his eyes. If you could wait a minute. That's when I noticed a walkie-talkie hooked on his belt and a shiny badge pinned on his breast pocket. Yes, I cursed the hesitancy in my voice. I meant to sound braver while facing down a police officer who could destroy my future. Well, that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but nevertheless, I was worried. How could I be sure this guy was really some mall cop? He could be some creep that wanted to drag us into his basement or leave us dead on the side of the street or abduct us for his alien overlords. How old are you girls? His eyes surveyed our small group, the hairs on my back of my neck raised in suspicion. We're all 14. Ah, I see. Well, it's past 4 o'clock, and here at Mall of America, those under the age of 16 are not allowed to walk around by themselves. Do you have a parent or guardian on the premises? Amanda and Amanda glanced at each other incredulously. It seemed like some bizarre practical joke. Despite our reasonable confusion, I told the mall cop my mom was here. Good. Can you contact her to come collect you, or do I need to escort you to her? His face was emotionless, only a twitch of an eyebrow to prove he wasn't a robot. I can call her. I elbowed Amanda as she laughed into her hand. Good. Now please stay here and wait. He stalked off after another group, like a rather large cat chasing a laser. We stood there silently for a bit. Well, I guess I should call my mom. Hannah? There's obvious confusion in her voice when she picked up. I need you to come find the Amandas, Megan, and I. Why? What happened? Her voice filled with that lovely parental concern that many know quite well. One of those things you would not want to be on the opposite side of, if you know what I mean. Well, it's a funny story. I looked at my friends who nodded encouragingly. Correction. One of the Amandas nodded encouragingly. The other one and Megan just laughed at me. I stuck my tongue out at them before muttering, jerks. What was that? I went shoot way. Nothing. But we were walking out of Nordstrom and some mall cop stopped us. He said we aren't allowed to walk around the mall without a parent after 4 o'clock since we aren't 16. My mom's laugh loudly interrupted my story. Hey, I'm not kidding. At this point, all 3 of my so-called friends were laughing at me. Mom, he wanted to know if I could get you to come find us or if we need to be escorted to you. I rolled my eyes and my mom's voice wavered with amusement. Are you being serious? Oh my gosh, yes, Mom. Do you think I could make this up? All right, I'm heading over and we'll be there as soon as possible. She hung up and now we just had to wait. This is so weird, I whispered, watching as the mall cop returned to his very important post, ruling over this minuscule corner of the 4 million square foot mall. It seemed taking hours for my mom to find us. The mall cop came over to our group. Girls, I cannot have you standing here. Where is your mother? I glance at my friends, my hand's fidgeting. My mom's on her way. It's just she's driving and she isn't here yet. I thought you said she was already here. Our eyes dropped, shoulders curving in, trying to be as small as possible. He walked away, reaching for his radio. I've got some 14-year-olds here. Can I get some help to escort them to base? A few minutes later, another mall cop showed up. Girls, if you could please follow me. We all glanced at each other, anxiety in our eyes, but we silently agreed to follow. Megan, Amanda, and I followed him through the mall till we stopped in front of a sign that read in bold letters, Bloomington Police. We stepped to the door, and after exchanging a glance with Amanda, I took out my phone and texted my mom. Please have a seat back here. We sat down, realizing that we had full view of a jail cell, an old bearded man sound asleep behind the ridiculously blue bars. Now, whose parents on their way? My hand raised slowly. My mom should be here soon. He nodded. All right, we'll stay put until we see your mother and can release you to her. With that, he walked away, leaving us alone once again. The air was thick with tension. Guys, we're actually in a mini police station. Wow, thanks, Sherlock. I hadn't realized. Megan glared at Amanda. I stifled a laugh. Sorry, I know this isn't the time, but it's kind of hilarious, you have to admit. Our small corner of the mall jail suddenly filled with giggles that turned to full-on belly laughs, despite the strange looks from the mall cop. Eventually the sound died down, and a door opened soon after. A familiar voice filled the room. There you are, you straight-A honors students. We all looked up to see my mother waving like a crazy person. I'm afraid these four belong to me. As we walked out the door, my mom leaned over and whispered, Do you want to take a picture? Thank you. Next up is Gabe Klassen.
Shout out to Marsha's first period. They have two other unloyal members on stage. Yeah, so I'm Gabe Klassen, and the following is a dramatization of true events. Part 1, Clear. The joy of the day seems to find a place everywhere the light hits. The sun is a benevolent conqueror who extends his jovial dominion over the face of Central Road Elementary School. Wherever he illuminates, children kick balls, play tag, slide, and laugh, the teeth of their smiles shining almost as brightly as their spirits. But his empire is not absolute. In my enclave of gloom, the sun is a cruel ruler. He beats down on my neck. He burns my hand when I touch my dark brown hair. He dries out my lips and my mouth. I can't swallow. I can't see. I'm hot. I'm thirsty. I am really thirsty. Earlier that morning, my 5th grade class had received a surprise when a disgusting scent had floated in through the air vents. We received a much better surprise when a voice crackled through the PA saying, Due to reports of noxious smells from several classrooms, all classes are dismissed outside while the ventilation system is inspected. No one could believe it. Everyone was excited. The 600 students of Central Road streamed outside to enjoy their field day. I was among them. I ran, strolled, tagged, chased, and jumped. I smiled and smelled and took in the sights to be seen, of Salt Creek flowing past the school, of the cars racing down the freeway, of the maple seeds gently twirling to the ground. But that was before. Now there is one thing on my mind: water. Aside from the fenced-off creek, Central Road's grounds might as well be a desert. There isn't a single water fountain, hose, or puddle to gain a drop of moisture from. So, filled with juvenile hope, I wander over to a door where a program assistant stands guard. Ms. Kono, I ask, can I go inside to get some water, please? No, she replies. It's not safe yet. Play outside. I look beyond Ms. Kono. The water fountains taunt me from just beyond the security glass, but the doors remain resolutely closed. I acquiesce in her orders, but I'm not satisfied. One way or another, I'm gonna quench my thirst. As Ms. Kono's denial festers, I think back to my history classes. I think of Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks standing up for what they believed in. I think of the freedom riders boldly fighting injustice through nonviolent means. I think of Gandhi's civil disobedience undermining British tyranny. I think of these, the best leaders, the greatest trendsetters of history. I have my plan. Out of the corner of my eye, I catch my good friend walking by. "Hey," I call, "you thirsty?" "Pretty," he responds. "Why? Would you like to join the dehydration club?" Part 2, calm. "Join the dehydration club. Join the dehydration club." I march around the fields with a small cadre of 5 people, stamping my feet to the beat and chanting recruitment slogans at people. Even though most ignore us, a few have become interested. We pick up a new recruit every few minutes. One of them is rather curious. "So what are we doing?" she inquires. "We're recruiting new members," I answer. "And then what?" "And then," I say, "then we march." Part 3, storm. "Do you think we have enough?" I ask. "We definitely do. We've got 15? "Yeah, you're right," I concede. "When?" "When you feel the time is right." After our brief exchange, the dehydration club is mostly silent. The dominant sound is of wind rushing past us. We face the school, the wide expanse of green between us and it. Students still play, but they seem so far away now. The sun is high in the sky and beats down, ever harsher on us. The wind dies down and I listen to the insects chirping by the creek, punctuated by the occasional thump of a soccer ball being kicked in the distance. The sounds of the world wash over each other in a sublime serenity. I hear nothing but the song of creation, which envelops me in calmness. My trance is short-lived. As I come down from it, the wind picks up speed. I can feel it. This is the time. "Go!" I yell. The dehydration club thrusts into action. We charge towards Central Road with a fiery passion, shortening the wide battlefield which had once laid between us. Our fists forcefully pump into the sky as we chant our battle cry. "Water! Water! Water!" Our hopes ride high as we progress forward unimpeded. I think this is going to work. No, I know this is going to work. Far away, a woman rushes toward us. Her eyebrows are furrowed. Her jaw is clenched. Her face is red as a tomato. She's the vice principal, and she's not happy. Thank you.
All right, let's give one more round of applause to our student presenters today. We actually, Sid has another piece he's going to share with us, so come on up.
So this is a real quick shout out to who wrote this. This is not my piece. This is a piece by Bill Gow, who's one of my very, very close friends. And I think this is an extremely this. Oh, my bad. All right.
All right, we'll do questions instead. Yeah, give him a round of applause for that, sure. Sorry about that, we just can't have him read a piece by somebody else, so that's okay. All right, so instead, we do have a couple minutes for questions here. So does anybody have any questions for our lovely presenters? Yes, up there, is that Abby? Yeah, okay, Abby, what's your question?
Gabe, did you get the water in the end?
It's a very important question. Did you get the water in the end?
So shortly after the events just described, obviously the vice principal came running and she's like, "The superintendent's over there, what the heck are you doing?" So, we were all, our field day basically ended. We had to sit down, and it's elementary school, so we were all crying. That's a waste of water, right? Just running down your face. But they did let us go inside to get some water. As to the punishment, I left on vacation the day after, so I didn't know what my punishment was, but when I came back, they just had me write a letter explaining why that was wrong or something. I guess there were enough people that they didn't feel like they could give us all detention or majors or whatever.
Great. Any other questions? Yes. Round.
Sid, what was Bill's piece about?
Okay, you can tell us a little bit about what it was about, but then we're gonna,
Yeah, so Bill wrote about something that I think is very important. It's about, it's essentially about like being ignorant about political beliefs. So, yeah, it's just about the two-party system and how, I mean, I guess it's like we shouldn't be letting our political beliefs we shouldn't be judging other people based on their political beliefs.
yeah. And so then if you want to see that piece, you should ask Bill. Maybe he'll share it with you. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, right there.
Yeah, did you take the picture with your mom from the...
Oh, I do have a picture, yeah.
Good. They allowed you to capture that moment forever.
One with me and my friends with our hands up on the wall.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. I think we have time for one more question. If anyone has one. In the center? Yes, right there.
Natalie, what was the craziest thing your father's ever had you do?
Do we have an hour? Well, the one that sticks out is the rock one, because that's the first time my mother's like, I should not have had a baby with a child as a husband.
That's a line right there. All right. Okay, I lied. We have time for one more question if someone has one, and then we'll do a quick thank you and head on out. Anyone? Yeah? All the way back there? Did Varun know you talked about him?
Yeah, I mentioned the piece, but I didn't exactly say that I was going to insult him during it, so he's in for a surprise.
He won't be too mad. Okay, let's give one round of applause for our presenters and their willingness to share today. Thank you guys so much for being a wonderful audience, and we will see you later.